Here to keep the chase going, share information, spread unity, preserve our heritage and our culture. We're trying to achieve something that you just can't catch. We're always trying to find a better way, trying to make better dogs. That's what Dixie Doggers Podcast is. That's who we are. All right, everybody. We're here one more time again with you at Dixie Doggers Podcast, coming to you live downtown at the Dog Pound. And we have what we would say is it's really a special guest for us because we never had anyone like this on. I actually never talked to anybody like this so far, and I've always found it very intriguing what they do and the type of dogs that they use, their training processes, their nutritional processes, the overall health. I think it's just phenomenal the way they do these dogs, and what I'm talking about is sled dogs. And we have a guest with us today. His name's Tony. He owns Endurance Kennels, and we got him on here. So, Mr. Tony, how are you doing today?
Wonderful. Thanks for calling from Alabama all the way up to Minnesota, clear across the country.
Yeah, that's a long ways. That's a long ways. I think we went to Michigan is as far as I've been.
Yeah,
and then that was too far.
Yeah. We didn't even make it to the Upper Peninsula. But
we went to Alpena.
Yeah, we went to Alpena.
I don't know where the hell that's at, but we went to Alpena.
I forgot we went that far north.
We literally drove all the way up there to F&T Fur Harvesters trading post and stayed there for about 30 minutes and then turned around and came out. And that was it. Drove all that way just to hang out.
Wow. Well, there's bear hunters over there too. There's a lot of bear hunters in northern Wisconsin too. So
yeah,
I kind of know what you guys are doing, but we don't have hogs this far north yet. But I'm sure they're making their way. Turkeys are up here now, and we've never had turkeys my entire life. You know.
Really, I didn't know that. I didn't know there wasn't turkeys up there.
They've been moving their way up north, but they're kind of at their northern boundary now because they're getting into the boreal forest. My property's on the boreal forest, and you can't see 2 feet into the woods. It's so thick.
Wow, that's pretty wild there. That's cool. Yeah, I actually had a lady contact me a few weeks back. She lives in Canada, and they have some hogs up there apparently, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think if you get over into Alberta, where it's a little more clear, they have plains and stuff over there.
I'm trying to think of her name. Miss Darcy Turner is her name.
Okay,
yeah, it was pretty. I was trying to see exactly where it was at. It was in Alberta. It's in Alberta. Yeah.
Yeah, because that kind of like when you go from Kansas north into all the way up to like Saskatchewan, it's open plains up there, and it's. They have the Calgary Stampede. There's cowboys and everything, up there in Alberta.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah. It's more like the West.
Yeah.
Right. Montana and all that. Yeah.
And so on these, on the dogs that you have, how long have you been doing this with the sled dogs, and go into a little bit of your background on that, and, like how long have you been doing it? What breed you use? We'll start out with that because I love this stuff here. It's different.
Sure. Yeah. So I own and operate Endurance Kennels LLC. I started that business back in 2009, and we were strictly just sprint racing sled dogs. And then we got into some of the touring aspects. So we give a lot of rides and tours with our sled dogs, but we also do some of the racing stuff. And I started way back when I was in high school with my grandpa's hunting dog. And she just loved to pull. She loved to run. I was a cross-country skier. And part of our sport, sprint racing, they have cross-country skiing with 1 or 2 dogs. And that's really popular around the world, especially in Europe where they have more of the, elite athletes there, and they can't have big kennels like we have here in the United States. If there's a big kennel in Europe, it's pretty rare and they're hard to find. So they call them micro kennels, where people have like 2 to 5 dogs or whatever, city or country they live in, what their limit is, So I was in high school back in, it would have been 1993 when I first started in ski joring. And then, I started helping out some of the local mushers, at the races, and then adopted a retired, Alaskan Husky, a retired sled dog, and then kept helping out. And then I really couldn't get my own racing sled dog until I was out, out of school, like out on my own, owned some property. And that's when I started in 2009. It was kind of this kennel business.
That's pretty cool there. So you've been at it for a pretty good while as a full business.
Yeah, 2009. So it'd be 15 years. It'll be in October.
Yeah, that's a pretty good stretch already. And I mean, a kennel is here. It's a hard thing to run. It's to make a living at it, to make any money. Because I don't know, like here in the Southeast, everybody has hunting dogs, especially for what we do. And so it's like, you're just nobody special is what I'm saying. It's like everybody's got them. So you really have to have a different level of dog to really be recognized.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's the same thing with sled dogs. We have a lot of people that just, for recreational purposes, a lot of people don't want to race. They just have their 4 or 5 Huskies, and, they probably live in the house, and they go run on the weekend.
And we see that a lot, you got, which I mean, I'm one of those guys. We hunt a lot, but there's guys out there that are what I call, they're the real deal hunters. They hunt every day that they can, and I don't mean like every chance they get. I mean like 5 days a week or 6 days a week, it's something like that. Yeah. And so those are the real deal guys. If I could afford to do it, I would, and in a heartbeat. But I mean, I can get a couple of days a weekend. That's about all I can get. So, and my dogs still suck. So you say you got the Huskies?
Yeah. So they don't look like Huskies, but they're called Alaskan Huskies, which is, it's a Husky mix designed specifically for sled dog racing. Mm-hmm. And what you see at sled dog races are, the faster races, because we have cutoff times and stuff like that. You'll see Siberian Huskies. There'll be purebred teams there. There'll be the Alaskan Huskies, which have the longer fur, and there'll be Alaskan Huskies that have the shorter fur and more of the sprint lines like our sled dogs do. So, I used to race. I was a bike racer for many years, and I like to go fast and like to sleep in a bed. And I had experience in the middle distance and the distance stuff, like Iditarod, just helping out. And there was no way that I wanted to be out there like in the middle of the night when it's 25 below and you're digging a ditch so that the dogs can come in and sleep, because you're driving the truck for the mushers from checkpoint to checkpoint along the race, whether the race be 100 miles or 200 miles or 500 miles. And so the musher's not getting any sleep either, but you're going, with them and through the dark. And I like to sleep at night, that's what's nice about the sprint races, is that we just have a short, fast race. We try to get close to 20 mile an hour average, and then we're done for the day. And then we race again the next day, and sometimes the third day too, depending on the race.
Okay. Gotcha. That was one of my questions I was going to ask, how long were the races that you were doing? But now, like the Iditarod, now that's a long race though, right?
That's 1,000 mile. Yeah.
They got two, correct me. Do they have 2 routes, or they used to? Cause like one of them was like 975. The other was like 998 or something. Depending on if you took one route or the other. Now this is the last time I read anything. It's been years ago about that.
It's just one route. Okay. They'll have like a mock start, and then they'll have, a mock start for the spectators and stuff in town. and the sponsors, and then they'll have a restart. So they all do the same trail. And some years it's a little bit shorter than others, depending on, what's going on. But they try to run,
that might be what I was talking about.
Yeah, because sometimes, I've seen some races I did ride where they had no snow.
Yeah.
But they didn't cancel the race, and they left it up to the mushers whether they still wanted to participate or not. Everybody was just breaking their sleds and getting injured, and it was just a carnage, because those dogs, you can't.
With no snow. I mean, how in the hell would you do that with no snow, really? Or with less snow, with less snow.
Yeah, you can. I mean, those sleds will run on grass and gravel, but you're tearing up the plastic and tearing your sleds apart, and then there's a risk of not being able to stop your dog team. So, they kind of left it up to the mushers what they wanted to do.
Mm. Yeah, that's a little bit different there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our sprints, our sprints start at 4 miles, and that's usually a 4-dog class. So whatever class you're racing at the race, that's usually how many miles you run. So 4-dog is usually around 4 miles, depending on the trail. 6-dog is 6 miles. And then most races will either have 8 or 10 dogs. And the 8-dog is, 8 to 10 miles. 10-dog is 10 to 14. And then they'll have open class, which is as many dogs as you want. And it's 20 to 25 miles for the open class. And then they have kids, juniors. They can start mushing and racing when they're about 8 years old. And they just do a little 2-mile or 3-mile trail with 2 dogs. And then they'll have the ski joring with 1 or 2 dogs. So there's a lot of different classes that you can run. So if you have a kennel full of dogs, sometimes the bigger dogs, that the big heavy 75 to 85 pound boys do better in that 4 and 6 dog class, because they start to tire out, after about 10 miles. You can still train them for that, but typically what you see is the smaller dogs, like the 40 to 45, 50 pound dogs that are doing the 25-mile run.
Mm. That's pretty cool. To think that, I never would have really thought any dogs would really be that big, like 80 pounders. It would make sense to have a big dog like that, but at the same time, it's like, that's what I was thinking, the endurance part.
Yeah. So, the smaller dogs, they obviously don't eat as many groceries. They travel over the snow better. They're less likely to get injured. They can go back to back to back days on end. So, they say the ultimate sled dog is 40 pounds. Just for that all around seasoning, but you don't want to, we breed our own dogs, and you either sell the big dogs or you find them a job. So, it's up to the musher to find them a job.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a quick break.
And now, thanks to the sponsors and friends of Dixie Doggers. Animal Housing Solutions.
Boars N Broads.
Crockett Taxidermy.
Hardcore Hog Dogs.
Southern Cross Cut Gear.
Ada Y Transport.
4L Kennels.
The American Doghorn Museum.
Unique Hounding Hunting Supply.
Hogbaying.com.
Tuskers Magazine.
Mud Creek Hog Dog Trials.
Now on the you were talking about eating the smaller dogs not eating as much and stuff. Now, when you're racing season's going on in the winter months, how much do you have to feed? I've always heard it's like 10,000 calories. I don't know, but just in stuff that I've read, I was just curious if that holds true for a dog that's say 40 to 50 pounds.
Yeah, the Iditarod style dogs, they definitely need those calories because they're running and they're sleeping on the snow. There's no shelter. There's no heated, dog boxes or anything like that for them. So they're outside, 24/7, and resting at the checkpoints and stuff like that. So they're burning a lot more calories than, say like a sprint dog. But I mean, every dog is different. So, I've never tested to see, like how many calories per cup our mix is.
Yeah.
I just know if the dog needs more food or not, whether it's gaining weight or losing weight or not finishing their dinner. And I mean, you can kind of,
Are you talking about your mix? Y'all make your own feed or feed raw? How do you, what's your feed like?
Yeah. In the winter time, you really can't put weight on sled dogs with kibble. Cause they're outside, they're working hard. Obviously, I mean, they eat a lot more food, in the winter, when they're running and they're sleeping in their dog houses and stuff like that. So, so we mix our own, feed. We feed raw, and then we mix some, kibble and other ingredients in it, depending if, we're racing or not, or, if some dogs need some supplements or whatnot. So, we feed beef and, chicken. It's ground beef, ground chicken, some organs, which would be liver and kidney and spleen, and then kibble and water and defrost it overnight. So it's, warm, and then we add warm water to it. So they get, in the evening, they get their, it's kind of the consistency of chili. It looks like chili.
Yes, sir.
And so, it's warm, it's heavy. And then in the morning, before we run, 2-3 hours before we run, they need their, I call it like a light chicken soup. So mixing in meat with warm water so that they're forced to drink. They need to get hydrated throughout the day, so they're not constantly eating snow and all that stuff.
So the hydration part in the extreme climates, the cold, we have to deal with it here in the Southeast. And like our winters are nothing compared to you guys at all. Like we probably have this past winter, we probably had maybe 2 weeks that were below freezing. And I mean, like not like below zero, but just below freezing, in the high 20s to 30s. We had 2 or 3 days that got what we call real cold, and they were probably in the teens. So that's about as bad as it's going to get. Usually it doesn't last for long periods of time, but we still have issues with our dogs wanting to drink water when it's cold. They don't want to. And
sled dogs are like that too. Like they don't want to drink plain water in the winter unless they're, really trained to. So, and if they don't drink it, it just freezes. So, if you give them baited water, which is what we do, it's warm, it tastes great, it's got meat in it. They drink it all. So, and sled dogs are bred for that. So you got to have good eating dogs. And we also train our dogs to eat too by fasting. We fast in the summertime. And if they're not finishing it, usually they're sick or overweight. And it's pretty rare that a dog is sick. Usually they're overweight.
Okay. I got you. So when you have a dog that, if you got one that's getting overweight, so all you do is just cut back on its feed a little bit. You don't do any exercises or not. It's food bowl conditioning is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we just cut back their feed because they kind of know, like, if they're overweight, what's going to happen, I've seen with the sled dogs, is that they'll overheat and they can't keep up with the feed. So they just have a hard time physically running when they're overweight. I mean, it's just like, a human runner, they're not going to, if they're 5-10 pounds overweight, they're not going to have the same 5K time as when they were, fitter and leaner.
Yes. That's me. My 5K time is pretty good. My 25K it's horrible. It's, you said 5 pounds overweight. Oh, I thought you meant 35 pounds. Oh shit. Wrong person. But, so on these sprint racing, the sleds, are they set up the same way as like the longer distance sleds? Tell us what all you got on your sled, and tell us what all the dogs are called. I know, like on the big teams, I guess you'd have to go to, And also, I know they do the voice commands on that. I don't know if you guys do, but I know you know all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, if we're going to sum it up into three, just simplify everything, for three different types of sleds. There's some more little intricate types, but it's kind of insignificant. But so we have a sprint style sled, which would be the lightest sleds out there. They're very flexible, and they can move side to side without having to take your feet off the runner. So you can actually turn the sled around the corners like you would with downhill skis.
Oh.
And then we have like a middle distance sled, which is the races that are 100 to 250 miles, and those sleds, or even the Iditarod. So those sleds are a little more robust, not as flexible, but still lightweight sled. And they're designed to carry some equipment, because in those races, you need to have some minimum equipment in your sled. You got to have, like the Iditarod, they got to carry all their dog food with them from checkpoint to checkpoint. They can refuel at the checkpoint, but they got to carry all that stuff with them. And then they need a little bit of room in the sled. If a dog gets injured or sick, they got to put a dog in the sled. So, those sleds are a little bit longer, a little more beefier, robust. That's the typical racing sled that you would see like on the internet if you search, dog sledding. And then you have like the touring and the toboggan style of sleds, which is what we give rides with, or we're going to carry, a bunch of equipment. Say you're going to put like 700 pounds of equipment in the sled, and you're going to go winter camping, on a frozen lake in northern Minnesota, and you're going to do some ice fishing. Or, you're given rides, tours like we do.
Yeah, I didn't really realize that the tours and stuff like that was even a thing. That's
yeah, it's very popular. Like all the major kennels, especially in Alaska, they bring like these tour boats, the cruise boats. They'll bring busloads of people to these kennels, and do demonstrations and give them rides and stuff like that. And that's how a lot of mushers make their money. The big time mushers, because it's a whole tourist industry for us. And a lot of people don't want to do it. A lot of mushers don't want to do it. They just want to race, or they just want to have their recreational. And I've always been an independent type of business guy, and I wanted to quit my other job and do dogs full time. So we kind of dabbled into that area, and I really liked it, because we started meeting people from around the world, and we've had people from every continent in the world except for Antarctica. And it's wonderful, because people they know what they're getting into, and they have smiles, and they just adrenaline rush when the dogs take off the kennel, and it's a lot of fun to see them smile and laugh. And
I bet. So it's kind of like the airboat tours for the swamp in, on the Gulf, South Alabama or Louisiana, Texas, places like that, Florida. They have the swamp tours where you can get on an airboat and just ride around, look at, gators or whatever. Just, it's a tourist thing,
I've seen those big, giant, tall swamp buggies. You guys have those down there? They're like 12 feet high, and they're just like
guys in Florida, and some of them in Louisiana. And I honestly think it's only because they don't have a Toyota. They get them a Toyota. That's all you need.
It's real common in like Central Florida.
Yeah. But no, they have to have them, because Toyota get it. Now, don't get me wrong. We got a few of them, but
some of that stuff's
crazy. That
crazy.
shit down there is, we just went down there with a group and hunted, and it was at the South Georgia, right on the Florida line.
It bordered the Okefenokee Swamp.
They said it was the driest that they've ever seen it. And it was still, everything was wet. You know what I'm saying? Right. So they got to have it for the water.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, though. So it's I just think y'all wouldn't have to. I wonder what kind of buggy you could build that would go drive around up there. Do y'all do that stuff? Like four wheel drive, just get out in mud bogging and drinking beer in
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
do you have rednecks?
We got rednecks everywhere.
Minnesota has the densest population of alcoholics.
Really?
No, that's Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Now you better calm down.
I knew he would know.
Don't you be talking about that.
I knew he would know.
Tony, he was fixing to try to talk bad about Minnesota, bro. Like, he was fixing to put it on you.
I'm just saying, I haven't met many rednecks that didn't almost
qualify. I'm going to Wisconsin. You're getting drunker than hell. So, all right, back to the dog stuff. Everybody's going to get on to me about not being serious about stuff. So, we talked about the feeding, the conditioning part on your dogs. The dog's pads. I know that's always going to be could be an issue or whatever. So the way the dogs are bred up, so they're bred to have tough pads as well, tough feet.
Yeah, that's something that we really try to breed into our dogs. Selecting dogs that do have tough feet because some race, like when you get into the middle distance, they require booties for dogs, at least on the rears. And those booties will only last you one length of the run or even like one training session.
Oh, damn.
And but what it does is it's not necessarily the pad itself that has a lot of abrasion. It's the webbing of the feet, and they get paper cuts in there and they kind of split. So it's it's called a fissure.
Yeah.
And if a dog is most dogs can run through it, but they're not going to give you 100%. They might give you 95%. And then some dogs it really does bother. So you try to prevent the fissures. We have some salve that we can use to prevent that. But you got to figure these booties are, anywhere from $1 to $2 a piece. And you're having to bend your back over and put, 4 booties on, 15 dogs, let's say, or 8 dogs. And it's a lot of bending over, and it's a lot of money that's down the drain every single run. So, these middle distance mushers and distance mushers are spending, they're buying 3,000-4,000 booties a year just so that they can get out and train and race. But for sprints, we really don't use booties because we're going at a high rate of speed and the trails are groomed very nice. But what it does, if the dogs have front end booties, it'll take away from their traction. They're more likely to get a shoulder or a wrist injury.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do have to booty, we just put booties on the rear to help save their feet, for the next day. But yeah, so, in the fall, we start harness training in the fall with the ATV or side-by-side. You can even have them pull your pickup truck. I've done that before too. But we train on gravel roads and grass trails. So it kind of toughens up their pads and gets them used to running on abrasive surfaces in the fall until we get enough snow. Usually we can start mid to late September. It's much better just to wait till the beginning of October, and then it can get everybody going, because some dogs are they're on the fence of whether they can run or not, depending on the temperatures. And it's just a much better temperature for them in the beginning of October. And then we run on that, and usually until the middle of December we'll have enough snow. We need a good 8 inches of snow and to be able to stop the sleds safely in mid-December. So mid-December through mid-April is when we usually running on the sleds.
So when you were saying to stop the sled safely, so the snow is a very crucial part to have for the brake to stop the sled. It seems like if there wasn't snow, it wouldn't slide as much. That's crazy.
the sled can run on 2 inches of snow, but you're not going to be able to stop and control your team. So,
Mm-hmm.
when we're first starting out on the sleds, we try to run smaller teams because the musher has got to get used to running on the sled again. It's like getting back on your bike. It's just like riding a bike.
Get recalibrated.
Get used to it. Yeah, you get used to it again. But especially when you have customers in the sled, you got to be able to stop. And we've had years where, like this year, we didn't have a lot of snow at all. We had hardly any snow. And so we had to run the four-wheeler out in front of the dog team in case I had to stop. So I could put the snow hook into the four-wheeler and be able to hold the dog team. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do it at all. Because that brake's got to have about 4 to 6 inches of pack snow to be able to stop the sled safely.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And you're saying a high rate of speed. What is that? Miles per hour.
So on the tours, we go anywhere from like 12 to 18 miles per hour. That's pretty fast for tours. Most touring companies are doing like 4 to 6 miles an hour. And then when we're racing, it's anywhere from 18 to 24 miles per hour. Really don't want to. I mean, the dogs will run 30 miles an hour if you let them, but you don't want to. You don't want to wear them out. You gotta pace them and try to do an even pace for the entire race. So those first 3 or 4 miles, I'm heavy on the drag mat. I'm heavy on the brake and trying to keep them at a lower pace, and then they'll settle into a good pace. 17 and a half, 18 miles an hour after 3 or 4 miles.
So that way they don't burn themselves out, or wear themselves out too fast. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll accumulate too much lactic acid, and then they'll just, kind of necklining and not pulling and wanting to slow down and put on the skids, and yeah.
So on you're saying the necklining and stuff. So that's for the listeners out there, because I already know all this stuff, man. Like I've been studying this stuff. I've been sled racing a little while now. No, I mean, like, explain to us what the dogs are called on the team, and
that's right, yeah,
and what the line is, what each line is. I mean, I know the the neck line, the toe line, all that stuff. Lay it out for all of us. Yeah,
so let's say we have a team of 8 dogs, which is what we typically do with the tours. Racing, I'll do more. I'll do 10 to 16 dogs. So the dogs are hooked up to the sled through a bridle, and the bridle is just a short line that's just in front of the brush bow. There's most of these sleds, well, almost all the sleds have a brush bow, and it's just a little wraparound, like half circle in front of the sled that prevents you from just slamming into a tree and destroying your sled. You'll kind of bounce off it if something like that happens.
Like a brush guard, like you have on a truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so that bridle is weaved through the sled and is attached to the stanchions on the sled, which are the straight up and down or the angled parts on the sled. And that's kind of where the sled is being pulled from. And then there'll be a gang line, which is what the dogs are attached to. There'll be a gang line that runs, all the way up to your lead dog. And then, so down the middle, we call that the center line. So the gang line is everything together. And then down the middle is the center line, and the dogs run side by side next to each other, paired up in sled dog racing typically. That's, the other option is the fan hitch, which is, sled dog racing up in Greenland. That's a whole different ball game. But, at the back, you have the wheel dogs. It's just like horses. You have the wheel dogs that are the closest to the sled, and in front of them are the team dogs. And then up at the front end, you obviously have your lead dogs, the 2 lead dogs up front, and then behind them are usually like backup leaders or leaders that are in training. And I call them point dogs, and then some mushers call them swing dogs, but it's the same thing.
That's
and
to
then
help steer,
all the dogs.
ain't it?
Yeah, so
those are to help
dogs
swing them around the corner.
Yeah. So the swing dogs kind of will help you push out. A good swing dog will help push out. A good wheel dog will know to take the turn wide. If you come in too tight on the turn, you're going to hit soft snow and probably hit a tree or whatnot.
Yeah, we don't want to hit no trees.
no bumping off any trees. And then, so on the gang line, the dogs, their harnesses are attached by a tug line. So we call that the tug line. That's where they do all the pulling. And then depending on the harnesses you use and the gang line that you use, most sled dog or mushers have a neckline too, which is just attached to their collar. And that helps prevent, like if a dog falls down and trips, so they don't get dragged, they can pop back up. That's just kind of a support system, and it keeps them close so that they don't like jut out like 3 feet away from that center line and fall down in the soft snow. So it has a couple different functions. And then it's our job as a musher to watch that gang line and keep that line tight, because if that line falls down and it goes slack, two things are going to happen. You're either going to get a dog that's tangled up, and you're going to lose control of the steering on the sled, because the sleds are designed to be pulled forward. So, and if a dog gets tangled up or wrapped around the line, they could get really hurt, and it's going to cost you time to put the snow hook down and run up and untangle that dog. So it's sled dog racing and sprint racing. It's not everybody. It's not the person that has the fastest dog team. It's usually the musher that has the smoothest run.
Okay.
Throughout the entire race.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense now that you explain it, the whole process to it, because, like you said, of course, in sprint racing or any racing, you're thinking it's a race. Let's just get there. And that's not the case. Like you were saying, just be steady with it.
There's crazy things that happen out on the trail. Like you're racing in Canada and Alaska, and there's moose out on the trail sometimes, and they'll block it the entire trail, and it's almost impossible for you to get by until they move, or they'll come and charge at the dogs because they think the dogs are wolves, or especially if there's a cow with a calf.
Yeah.
They'll definitely attack a dog team, and dog teams get attacked all the time by moose up there. Oh yeah.
Now, so do you have to break the dogs from? I mean, like all our dogs, of course, first thing they would do is want to, try to attack the moose or bark at it or harass it or whatever, because they're hunting dogs. So in your case, I didn't know if those dogs would have a natural want to, as far as engage with the moose or other animals there. So do you have to break them from that, or they just don't want to?
They want to go after the moose for sure, and especially when you have a dog team that's tied up, the dogs don't stand a chance. So you got to get off that sled and grab a big stick out of the woods or shotgun or rifle or whatever you got on you, and try to get that moose out of the way, because they'll attack you too if you don't get it out of there. So it's a situation by situation kind of deal. And the winner of the Iditarod last year, Dallas Seavey, he ran into a moose and had to shoot the animal, and that happens quite a bit, up there. And the rules are you have to process the animal properly so the meat doesn't go to waste, so that the natives can use the meat in the villages.
Yeah.
So I mean, it does happen, and dogs get injured all the time.
I wish we had some of those laws here, as far as like making sure the meat is processed and all that, because we have people that they might shoot something and just leave it laying, and that just
I think they deserve another charge if they get caught.
Yeah, it's just not a good it's just not a good thing. Sometimes we have a lot of nuisance animals as well, and you can't really do much with some of them, and I get that, but we've also pulled up to places where there were just like wild hogs just laying all out in the field where somebody shot them and just left them. Yeah, they're just laying out in the field. And I was like, man, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, even if you don't process them or eat them or anything, at least drag them off to a pile or something. Let the coyotes or something have them.
Yeah, and it doesn't look good for hunters.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
you are correct, 100%. And so, with that being said, we deal with a lot of animal activists, a lot of people, the fine citizens of the United States, well, of the world that are involved with PETA. Do you guys have to deal with the bunny humpers? I mean, the PETA people.
Yeah, they try to,
or ASPCA or whoever.
Yeah, they really come out of the woodwork, like during the Iditarod. We don't have, we have a sled dog race here in town. So, it's been part of our culture up here for years. And I'm surrounded by mushers, that's the same thing with you guys,
Mm-hmm.
We all have a network. We all talk to each other, and, we might not do everything on the internet, but we pick up the phone and we call each other if we have a problem, or, somebody's got an issue with a dog and you need to pick their brain, or you're going to go on vacation for, 5 days. You need somebody to come and feed,
Hell yeah.
We all have a network. It's not like we don't talk to each other. It's not like we just started yesterday. And obviously, we want to take great care of our dogs. And the thing is, these guys are all, what the PETA folks don't understand is that these dogs are athletes. They're bred to run. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't feed them properly, if you don't house them properly, if you don't take care of their health care, their veterinary care, they're not going to perform. So you're just wasting your time by having a dog that's not doing well because you're not taking care of it. So it's not like, they're couch potatoes, sitting on the couch and being forced to run. They want to run. They get really bummed out if they don't get to go.
I could, and I don't know why those people can't understand that concept of the athlete in the animal. I mean, race-horses, dogs that race, same thing with our hog dogs or our coon dogs or whatever. When you see a dog and he's slim in the rear, in the stomach, you can see the last couple of ribs just a little bit, but you see all the striations and the muscle structure. Not a bunch of loose skin hanging off and all that. And the dog can run 20 miles an hour and do that all day. That son of a bitch is took care of. I'm sorry. He's took better care of than I do my kids.
Oh yeah.
And they cannot get that. A 600-pound man is not going to run a 40-mile marathon. So why would you think that with a dog?
They try to throw the stats at the Iditarod and how many dogs have died. And yes, dogs have died during the race, and it's not because of the race. It's not because of, whatever. They do need cropsies on all the dogs. They release the data. They do drug testing on all the dogs, and mushers have to qualify. Like it's not something that you can just, sign up for and lease a bunch of dogs and go do it. So, and there's veterinarians like throughout the entire race. Every single race that we do has veterinarians there, making sure the dogs are healthy to race.
Wow.
And there's more dogs that die in shelters daily for ratio. I'm talking about ratios. Significantly more dogs that die in shelters than any dog in any sled race ever.
Oh yes, I agree with that because it's ridiculous the amount of dogs. And I'm not talking about, and I know you're not either. You're not talking about like just kill shelters, but just dogs that are poor condition. They're not healthy. They're not taken care of. I have went to our local shelter before. Now this has been years ago. It was under someone else's care, and literally went back there and they had the big silver garbage cans full of dogs and kittens, or young dogs and cats, because they had died.
Yeah.
They was like, oh, it must have been coccidia. It must have been parvo. It must have been this, it must have been that. Well, I mean, are you not checking them? You're not taking care of them? Do they not have their shots? You know, what's the problem? And I was just being a jerk about the whole thing, honestly, because they were messing with some people I knew. So we decided to go down there and investigate them. And needless to say, it was a horrible situation from what I see.
Yeah, and we talked about the hunters that leave bad names for hunters, and there's some mushers out there that are like that too. Like they just leave a bad mark for every other musher, and then PETA jumps on that, and then they roll with it and think that everybody treats dogs that way, and that's not the case. I mean, you gotta take a look at the person, who they were, and what the cause was, and it's a situational basis. I mean, there's evil people everywhere you look, and it's just, and there's a lot of good people too.
Yes, without a doubt.
I've never, I know offhand, I mean, just in this area in Minnesota and Wisconsin, at least 40 to 50 mushers in our area. And I know many more in Canada and Alaska and over in Europe, because I was vice president of our United States Mushing Federation for 4 years. So I saw the international aspect. I did the international website. I went to the World Championships, and mushers are great people. No doubt about it. But yeah, like I said, can't let a few bad apples spoil the whole damn bunch.
That's exactly right. And like you said, the circumstances, and like when something happens to a dog, I had an older gentleman one morning put it in the best terms, probably for me, as far as understanding. This 20-something years ago, around 20 years ago, we were eating breakfast at a little place, and I had a guy that was sitting there, and we were talking about a dog, and I told him, I was like, well, no, it's probably 15 years ago. And I told him, I was like, man, I said, I had a dog come up sick. I said, and I don't know what happened. I said, the dog was fine. I said, and he acted like he just wasn't feeling good. And I said, and man, he died. And so we kept on. And like, we were going through all these scenarios, right? And this older man was sitting over there, and he was like, just out of the blue, he looked at me, he said, anybody that's got the flu here lately? And I was like, oh, yes, sir. And so I started naming off people that I knew. He said, anybody that's got cancer? And I was like, well, yeah. So I started naming off a few people. He looked, he's like, well, hell, that ain't even half as many dogs you got on your yard. He said, you think if you got 50 people, somebody's going to be sick out of those 50? I was like, well, yes, sir. He's like, it's pretty plain and simple, son. He said, dogs do it just like we do. He said, he could have had a heart attack and died. He said, it could have had kidney failure. He said, it could be a million things. He said, if you got the numbers, things will happen. And that's true.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
And, we get some of these young dogs, and I've had a few young dogs pass away, and, I did everything I possibly could to get medical care for the dog. And, I had a couple, because some of these dogs they have greyhound blood in them. A couple of them had heart attacks because they had, wrong size hearts, like their left ventricle would be a little bit larger than their right ventricle, and the heart's not pumping straight, and it chokes out the blood.
Yes, sir.
And the only reason I knew that is because I took the dogs in and got necropsy, because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't my fault that the dog died, and it was just a fluke or an accident, or that particular breeding. And we learn it all the time. And 2 years ago, we lost a lot of dogs. We had a lot of dogs that were at the end of their life stage, and that was extremely tough for me. And I was like, I don't know how much more of this I can handle. Like, I was really ready to quit.
I can imagine.
Just because I couldn't handle the heartache, because I bred these dogs. I've known them since they're puppies. I gave them names, and they're born here on the property.
Well, I mean, they're your family. They're your life.
Yeah. Yes. And, we're very attached to our dog, and I can tell, out of the 50 dogs that we have, I can tell who's barking by their voice.
Mm-hmm.
You know them that well.
I agree. Like we're the same way.
You sit at the house and listen. I'll be like, okay, that one's barking, and I'll holler their name, and they'll be quiet.
Yep. And that, I mean, and I know I've been to people's yards who've had half that many dogs, and they don't know what dog is what.
Yeah. And then I've seen people with 4 or 5 times the amount, and they know them even better.
Yeah. Mr. Charlie Tucker's like that.
Yeah, it is freaky.
Yeah. I mean, whether it was all the way from little bitty puppies up to dogs that were ancient, and this one gentleman, he had several different big dog yards, and I mean, he could tell you every dog there.
The pedigree
front to back. I mean, every dog. And we looked at 170 dogs at one time when I was over there. And that just amazed me. I'm like, I do pretty good. I can remember their names, and I know what their bark sounds like, but when people get that involved in it, like the way that you are, and the way I try to be, it's, they don't realize, other people don't realize how much it has consumed you over your life. You arrange your vacations around your dogs. You arrange everything around your dog, or a competition or a race or something like that. I don't think a lot of people really get that.
Yes.
So y'all keep about 50 head on the yard?
Yeah, we were up to, I think, about 65 a couple years ago. We lost quite a few. I adopted a few out to some of my employees, and then now we're trying to have puppies. So we had 2 breedings. I want to try to have 2 litters with the same stud, 2 different females, and so we're trying to have puppies. They're supposed to be due middle of August, but they really don't start showing until they're about 6 weeks old, and then I don't do the ultrasound thing. I think that's good for if you want to know how many are in there, and the X-ray type thing. But kind of just let nature take its course. They're young females, and they usually come out pretty quick, pretty fast. And both of the females, their mothers were good mothers too. So so we're hoping for 2 litters of puppies sometime in August, which would be a blast. I really miss having puppies. We didn't have any last year, so I was kind of bummed, but really looking forward to those guys.
So having puppies when does y'all's wintertime start? I'm just curious on like the raising puppies, like during the winter. What's your process on raising pups, whelping pups, and raising them up till they're big enough to really get with it?
Yeah, that's another good question. So I don't like to breed past the end of June, because I like to spend the summers with puppies. We don't do a lot in the summer with the sled dogs, the adult dogs. We do a lot of free running, loose running. It's early in the morning, and but the summers are having puppies and spending time with puppies, and then getting them big enough so that they can survive outside in the winter without having to come in. We've had a couple accidental litters that we had puppies in the winter, and I had to whelp them in the house and then keep them in the house until they were about 6 weeks old, and they're just destroying everything. But like, I'm outside all day with the adult dogs doing rides and doing that stuff, so I don't have time to babysit them in the house. And I like to spend time with puppies. So in the winter, you have no time to spend with puppies at all. So it's really tough. And then so we start with the development of puppies. They really can't see you, Val, until they're about 6 weeks old. They can hear you. They can't see more than 15, 20 yards really, until their eyes have started to develop. So we just do little walks around the yard, 6 to 8 weeks old. When they're 3 to 4 months old, we get them used to the 4-wheeler. So, starting up the 4-wheeler, getting used to the noise. and then they'll chase us. We'll drive the 4-wheeler around the yard, and they'll just chase the 4-wheeler. So we do some conditioning, like just basic walks, like letting them decide when they're tired, and then, okay, that's enough. We're not going to do anymore. Mm-hmm. Like every other day we do, like nice puppy walks, and they go longer and longer every single time. And then we don't hook them up out into the big dog yard until they're at least like 6 or 7 months old. And we like to have them out there getting used to a tether system before we hook them up to the gang line, because some dogs take naturally to the gang line and some kind of flop around like a fish out of water. It's funny to watch, but it's just like leash training a pet dog. They first time on a leash, they kind of freak out. They don't know what to do.
Yeah. Some will just stand there, and then the other ones, like you said, they'll be jumping around.
Booking Bronco time.
Yeah. We had a dog that we actually named Bronco because like he literally that was, and he was like that till he was 6 months old. It was wild, man. I was like, this dog he's not going to get it. And all that, it was just leash breaking him. I couldn't imagine having one doing that if you were on the gig line there and had all these other dogs there, and then he starts freaking out. No.
Yeah.
That could be a mess.
I got a funny video I could share with you guys of harness breaking puppies, and it's absolutely hilarious. But so anyway, we keep our old dogs around, for their entire lives, especially if they're lead dogs. If one of the employees or a friend really falls in love with one of the older dogs and wants to take them home, I'm like, okay, well, you can have the dog. That's fine. Because the older dogs don't like to run as fast as the racing age. The racing age dogs are 2 to 6. Sometimes you'll get a really good dog that gets into 7 maybe, but then they really start to slow down. So the older dogs don't like to run fast with the racing age dogs, and the racing age dogs don't like to run with the old dogs because they want to go faster, and they're trying to go faster and they can't, because I won't let them,
That's right.
You never want to overrun your slowest dog on the team. So the old dogs train the young dogs for us. So on the gang line, typically what I do on the gang line, I'll put up a 12-dog gang line, and then I'll have 6 dogs, 6 of the veteran dogs up front, and then 3 puppies in single spots behind them. So we just double hook the puppies so that the puppies are not bouncing off a partner or another dog, and that other dog's not getting angry with them or whatever. So we harness break them out that way, and then once at 6-7 months, and then once they get really good at running in that single spot by themselves, they figured it out. Some dogs figure it out right away. Some dogs take a month or two. Some dogs take a week or two. It really depends on the dog. And then we'll pair them up with another older dog once they get more experience and not bouncing around. And those runs are really short. They're not any longer than like 1.5 miles or 2 miles. So, you don't want to, the whole idea is to let them have fun and make sure it's fun and they're having a good time and they want to do it again. So you always want to finish any sled run with sprint racing sled dogs. You want to finish with energy, even the adult racing dogs. You never want to run them till they're tired. Mm-hmm. So, that's a tip for, the conditioning aspect.
Yeah, that's a good tip there for sure. Because that was go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. So then we're not allowed to race dogs that are younger than 18 months. They really need to close those growth plates. So, we're taking it easy on those young dogs. We'll let them play with speed a little bit. But once they're 2, then we start having some expectations of them. They're ready to perform. So we don't let them run all out until they're over 2. Unless they're doing it loose on their own, like in the yard or with a 4-wheeler or whatever.
Okay. Because like I said, that the conditioning part is always what's kind of drew me toward the the sled dog to be interested in it, you know. Because, of course, you know, we don't have any snow or anything like that. But I was always amazed by, you know, how well these dogs could perform under the circumstances of the environment as well. And so doing the exercise part, I mean, and getting that to where, like you said, you don't want to run them till they're really tired. So go over like a good training regimen for a racing dog that you have, a racing age dog now.
Yeah. So it'll just be kind of a broad spectrum. We restart our season usually in the middle of May. The dogs will get a whole month off after the sled season just to recover and let their bodies heal any deep injuries they might have or may not have. Let them acclimatize to the spring and going into summer temperatures. We have to be really careful with our dogs in March and April, because once it gets above freezing, I have quite a few dogs that will overheat. We don't run them if it gets above like 35, 38 degrees Fahrenheit in the spring, because they're acclimatized to the really cold weather and they think they can run all out without getting hot, and they'll actually overheat and cook their hypothalamus. So we let them reset and acclimatize, you know, to the warming temps again, and then we'll start loose running, free running. So I keep litters together ever since they're little pups, because they're usually on the same level. They're on the same athletic level. They're at the same disposition, and they'll run 7 to 9 dogs at a time, and they're loose. And some dogs, you know, run right next to the four-wheeler. Some dogs run behind the four-wheeler, and some dogs will accelerate and run, you know, a little bit in front of the wheeler. Every group is different. Every dog is different. So we do that from May until September. And sometimes we got to take a break. Like right now, we got to take a break because it's going to get really warm here. So my cutoff is about 58, 59 degrees, and it's got to be lower than 80% humidity. There's so much greenery here in northern Minnesota that the mornings are very, very humid. So it's hard for a dog to cool themselves when the air is hot and humid, because they just can't. That air heats up too quick. Yes. You know.
That's
grass is wet.
That's a big issue we deal with is overheating. We have we live in a tropical climate in the area that we're in, and a lot of people they really don't understand that, you know, or they don't realize that. We had a couple of guys come from Louisiana that lived below New Orleans, and when they got here, they were shocked because it was hotter and more humid than where they're from.
We have like a in between of wet and dry seasons and the 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a hybrid.
It's ridiculous.
So like, I think, what was it, last year we were 10 inches shy of meeting like what the Amazon rainforest gets on average.
Yep.
Oh my God.
But we had gotten an extraordinary amount of rain, but it wasn't that much more. I think it was like an extra 2 foot of rain.
We got 26 inches that 1 week.
Yeah. There was 1 week that was like, I know it might have been Mississippi. Year. I don't remember Alabama statistics. I think I was still in college.
It's a lot, but like this year it's been dry.
Yeah.
For right now.
Because it's typically our wet season until about August, middle of August. But
now the temperatures today, the real field temperature was 111.
Yeah.
And the humidity was like 70-something%, 72%, I think. It's bad. I mean, like it can kill you just being outside, you know, or for too long. We put on metal roofs, shingle roofs, do construction, and it's rough. But like with the dogs, there's a lot of people, they just shut down. Like you said, they take a break, and we don't really we don't push as hard, but you know what I mean? We don't hunt quite as much, but we still hunt. We try to work with the weather all we can, the coolest parts of the day or night, whatever we can work with. But sometimes you just it just goes, you know. But
you You guys are keeping those dogs really wet too. That helps.
Yeah, like I said, we try to hit the creek bottoms, and there's a creek. Usually, it's some running water, fresh water there, so they've got water at least.
A lot of our properties have ponds as well.
Yes, and so we've always got somewhere to kind of keep them wet, but we also have a lot of little tips and tricks that we do for dogs that start running too hot or overheating, or show symptoms of heat stroke. What do you do in the situation if you have a dog that has overheated severely or has come into heat stroke stage? What are the steps and methods that you use?
I had one dog. It was a real surprise. He was he was my top dog at the time, lead dog. He just had so much muscle mass that he, has high metabolism and would overheat. And it was after the racing season. I think it was only like 35 degrees Fahrenheit, but it was sunny. And he was just toward the end of the run. I think we only did like a 6-mile sled run, and toward the end of the run, he was running really wonky and just like kind of wobbling sideways, and he kind of like laid down, and he's, like his mouth was so wide open that you could like practically see down to his lungs. And I was like, oh my gosh, this dog's overheating. So I had to, we had a bucket of water out there for giving him water after the run, and I took my shirt off and put it in the water and try to get his belly as wet as much as possible and get his head wet as much as possible. And he ended up cooking his hypothalamus, and he couldn't, he survived, but he couldn't run that next year unless it was below freezing.
Yep.
He would just overheat. And then it took him another year, and then he was kind of back towards normal. And then we had some 90-degree days a few years ago, and he started freaking out and suffering really bad. So I had to get him in the house and get him cooled down, because it's good 20 degrees cooler in here, and he was a good house dog anyways, but I felt so bad for him. So moving the dog and getting them wet, moving is really important too. I had a dog a couple of years ago that kind of overheated in 38 degrees and had to get him off the line, and I just left the rest of the dogs with my handlers. I just hooked them up. I got to walk him and move him. And he ended up covered, but you kind of see when their gait changes in the gang line and they slow down a little bit, and you're wondering what's going on. And I know what to look for in our dogs, and then not put them in that situation ever again, really. Yeah. So unless we have to run, I'll run the dogs that don't get as hot. Otherwise, I won't run anybody. So there's been times where, in the spring where I say, we still have plenty of snow, but I can only run until noon, and then we can't run anymore because it's going to get too hot. So, we'll book the customers. We'll try to get everybody out early in the morning, 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and then be done for the day. Because that way too, like the snow on the trail starts to fall apart, and we got so much snow accumulated through the winter. There might be 3 or 4 feet of packed snow on the trail, but with that warm, penetrating sun, the trail just falls and the dogs just punch through. They can't run through it. It's kind of like running through slush.
Yeah, and that would have to really be. I think that would be
cause ruts for the sled, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the sled won't move, and it's just it's not worth going out when it's really warm like that. And if it's above freezing at night, we'd have to shut down because we can't run at all the next day. It has to at least freeze at night too, which it usually does, in March and April. And once the weather is above freezing at night, then we're pretty much done for the season.
Wow, that's crazy. It's so different from what we do. I just find it really, really amazing, the whole thing.
When we were talking earlier about foot injuries and stuff, you said there was a salve that you used to help with the fissures. Is that something y'all make at home, or is that like a name brand?
There used to be a name brand. I don't even have an old bottle here. But I don't want to promote some other companies, but yeah, it's kind of like a bag balm. But it holds up better in snow so that the dogs don't lose it right away. It stays up in there, and it's got some soya and some zinc in it, which zinc is very good supplement for making tough dog feet. So if you supplement with zinc, it really helps them out. We usually do that during race season, just add that supplement in their diet.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my next questions, was what kind of supplements, like, we were talking about the feeding and stuff earlier. You said you could add add other supplements to the feed, to the mixture that you have. What supplements do you guys use that are the most important that you feel?
We use like an electrolyte supplement after they're racing, which it's got some protein and a little bit of fat in it too, which helps them rehydrate and get the electrolytes back in them. We don't do that on a daily basis, but at the races and stuff like that, we add, we can add some fish oil is good, for their skin, and then the zinc supplement. Gosh, I'm trying to do like 4 things at once here.
On the fish oil, what kind of fish oil? Is it like the omega-3 or omega-6s or?
Yeah, so they need that vitamin E.
Yeah.
That vitamin E will help with their T2 and their coat. So those are, some of the stuff that we do add. Some mushers they'll add like egg. But primarily, like, what a lot of pet folks don't understand is that sled dogs have an entire different metabolism. They don't need a balanced diet, because if they had a balanced diet, it would just be full of fiber and they wouldn't get any calories. They'd lose a ton of weight, and their gut you'd be feeding them so much that their gut would just be full of fiber. So, sled dogs burn fat primarily, and then they need protein. So fat and protein, and then you add the fiber and then all the other, supplements that you would add. But we try to do stuff naturally, stuff that they would get through like eating a deer on the side of the road. They go for the guts first. So, like tripe is one that's got the bacteria in there. We add, probiotics when we go racing, so that it firms up their stool and keeps them from getting sick from other dogs. Other dogs that are out on the trail.
We talked to a guy a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Ross, Dean Ross, and he runs some hog dogs, but he has like the Irish Wolfhound crosses, some stag hounds. He's got his own mixture, and he feeds raw, and that's what he does. Yeah. He throws the whole carcass in there, and it's usually wild hogs or something like that, because that's what he primarily hunts. And he has a big pen, throws the whole carcass in there, and they eat intestines and all. And so, like, I was always weary of that because of worms and stuff like that. But I mean, we keep our dogs on a strict worming regimen. We have to here in the Southeast because it's horrible.
It's prime conditions for worms all year round.
I guarantee you
don't get cold enough to kill them.
No, if you have like a 3-month wormer, you still got to use it every month. Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. But I was really, when you said that really piqued my my interest on that. I'm gonna look more into that because, like you said, it's a natural probiotic that's in the tripe and stuff.
Deer also has a lot of creatine in it. I imagine that helps.
Yeah, we fed a lot of deer this past winter. This past winter we fed a lot of raw, and we fed a lot of deer deer meat. And I'm going to tell you, the dogs, honestly, they probably look better this winter than,
we
I don't know what.
We feed venison carcasses in the fall because our deer hunting season in Minnesota is in the middle of November, and I'm friends with our local butcher. Mm-hmm. He's just about five miles down the road, and he's got to pay money to fill up his dumpster to dump the carcasses. So he just lets me take whatever I want. So I just bring my trailer there, and then they'll load the trailer with everything, and I chop it up, and the dogs they'll eat everything, bones and everything. So the bones, clean their teeth, give them fiber that's got fat for marrow, mm-hmm. and they absolutely love it. I mean, you can't give them a lot, you got to, portion it out. Otherwise they won't run very well. But, venison's awesome for dogs. Totally.
You have to forgive us for a second. We're in here recording. It sounds like somebody's in the other room over here. I don't know if they're breaking in or what. We got a dog though. We'll sick on them. Either that, or we are in Alabama. Nate can just shoot them. Either way. But you're talking about the deer season. Is it just in November?
Well, we have a bow hunting season. That usually, I used to bow hunt. That starts in the middle of September, and that goes till December 31st. It's the same as grouse hunting season, the bird season here.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, we have a very lenient deer season here. Our bow season comes in 1st of October and goes out in February. And then our gun season will come in November, and it will go out in February as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so until just the past few years, used to you could kill a buck and a doe a day, every day. And they finally changed it to a 3-buck rule to where you can only kill 3 bucks, and you have to tag them. But you can still kill a doe every day of season.
Or unantlered deer.
Or an unantlered deer.
It could be a young
every
buck,
day.
As long as the antler's not visible above the hairline,
so
it counts as unantlered.
If you count from October 1st till February 10th, that's how many deer you can kill.
Wow. Yeah, it's very, very limited up here. It changes all the time.
That's wild.
Yeah. It changes all the time. Our rifle season in Minnesota is 2 weeks and 2 days. Mm-hmm. And then it depends on the year. I remember years where we could take 5 deer because we had so many. But lately they just been doing like buck only, and it depends on the zone. Like they'll divide the state up into zones, and every zone is different. And then some zones you can't shoot with rifle; you have to shoot with slug because it's too populated.
Yeah, that's
really weird.
Yeah, that's the way it was in Arkansas when I grew up. But you could have like zone 4 where we hunted a lot. It was shotguns only, slugs only, 20 gauge and larger. You could kill 1 buck. Season lasted 7 days, and then the zone right beside it, I think season lasted like a month, and you could kill whatever you wanted, but I think you were limited to 3 deer. So, it was buck or doe. And then for an extra $10, you could buy another tag. It was just, like you said, it was all broke up into different zones, and there was 20 something zones then. And then, like I said, then we came to Alabama, and it was like, I could shoot 2 deer a day every single day. I was like, holy smokes. Yeah, it was like, I put it this way. There was a lot of deer meat to eat, I promise. Which I really don't, I don't deer hunt now. Haven't in a long time. The boys, they do more of that, which now my youngest son, Logan, he's the deer slayer of the group now. Oh, yeah. He's mad at him. He don't like deer very much. So he keeps plenty of venison. But like if we get the opportunity, I think a couple times a year, all of them will go hunt. I like to bow hunt. I suck at it, but I like it. That's probably about the only kind of hunting I like to do that doesn't involve a dog, you know. And I'd rather run deer with dogs, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, these dogs, you know, they got a little bit of bird dog in them too, and they love to go grouse hunting. I'll take them grouse hunting in the fall just to get them out, and they know what's going on. I take them out when they're young too, and they love it.
Sounds like they sound almost like hog dogs. I mean, like there's a guy named Pat Lewin, Uncle Pat. His dogs run 20 miles an hour, and they'll run for 20 damn miles. And they got a little bit of bird dog here, a little bit of little greyhound in them, maybe a little hound dog in them, a little cur dog. You never know what all is in there. But the dog is going to be a high performance dog. And I could see that a while ago when we were talking about the whole moose situation. All I could picture was having some hog dogs. Now hear me out. We could build like a small swamp buggy. We could hook these dogs up and let the dogs pull us through the swamp. You see, you get what I'm saying? And then, like, if we run up on a hog or something, just like you do a moose, just bam, it's over. But see, that's the only problem. These hogs, they want to run for 20 damn miles, and it takes a lot to stop them sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got tracking collars on them, and I use those stuff too. You know, like I lived at a kennel for a little while in northern Wisconsin, and they all had the tracking collars on the dogs, and I thought that was the neatest thing, and looked into it, and so I bought, you know, the Garmin system, the Alpha system, and we've been using that since 2013, and you know, kind of upgrading here and there. But it's a good training tool in the summer, and we're loose running because we do, you know, we run into deer. We run into moose a couple times pre-running too, and that was a little scary. One bull, I swear and I had my side-by-side then. He was so tall, I thought I could drive my side-by-side under his belly.
Wow.
And then he took off in the woods, and I thought that he was going to turn around and attack the dog, but he took off and left, and all the dogs took off after him.
That's just wild.
So it's like, and it happened to be one of the days where I didn't put the collars on the dogs because you know, some of the groups are so well trained and they're so, you know, they're so low maintenance, you don't have to. But they all took off, and then it wasn't maybe 30, 40 seconds they came back. So they realized that, you know, they were kind of unmatched. I don't know if he stopped and turned around or whatever, but they all came back.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though. I mean, and like in certain states, I know that there's a lot of stipulations on like having a certain collar on your dog when you're running them, doing that. And that was another question I was going to ask, but you answered. I didn't know if you guys ran any kind of tracking systems on the dogs just to, you know, to keep up with them in the off season or whatever. So, I mean, that kind of answered that right there. So that's pretty cool. But God, it'd be about like a hog hunter for real. You'd have to have 10, 12 collars at least to put it on.
Yeah, I have 6 collars, but I mean, that's all I really need. I only put them on the dogs that need a tune-up because, I mean, there's entire litters where I don't need a collar on them at all, you know, on any of the dogs. But I still run the unit because I record training runs and, you know, get used to running that unit while you're driving full speed on a 4-wheeler and try to record with your telephone or your cell phone. And
have you thought about you putting the GoPros on?
Oh yeah, I've done the GoPros. You know, like
did you like it or not?
I'm a professional photographer too. So,
oh shit! Well, never mind. Professional photographers don't like YouTube. I mean, YouTube. They don't like GoPros. Wow.
Well, video is a whole different world, and my gripe with video is the amount of time it takes you to set everything up, and then never really turns out the way you want it to, like photo, and then the amount of storage that you got to do and the rendering of the video, because we have a YouTube channel too, and I do YouTube on my photography page, and then I do YouTube for my dad and for his marketing. But So I'm getting better. I'm not very good at it, but I'm getting better. But photography I'm much better at. But yes, we've done GoPros with the dogs free running, and it's just so much easier for me to grab my cell phone and whip it out and grab something quick for social media.
I got you. What about putting a GoPro on the dog from the dog's point of view?
Yeah, I have one of those harnesses. I think the footage just came out like way too shaky.
Yeah, it's the harnesses and stuff that they make. They're not very good for that. We make a collar, and we're working on trying to make a different style as well. To that way you got a little bit better view, and it's also where you place it on the dog that we found for us for what works for what we do. And we've got some prototypes and stuff. We might have to get one fixed up and send you something that you can. All it is the GoPro mount. I mean, if you got a GoPro, you just slide it on the mounts there. You just hook it on there and then go. We might have to hook you up with one of those. That'd be something definitely different point of view is having it from that dog. Like on a lead dog, man, that thing running through there and a big ass moose jumps out. Yeah. Yeah. How much bigger is
pretty quick.
How much bigger is a moose than a whitetail deer? I mean, y'all's whitetail deer are a lot bigger.
They're bigger than elk. So, they're the biggest deer species in North America.
Yeah, largest
and Europe. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying when you're saying
I think they're mostly like 9-10 foot at the shoulders.
That's what I'm saying. People, I'm just trying to put it in perspective for people that are listening that really have no idea.
Like a shoulder mount is like 6 foot tall or something.
Yeah, like when you run up on one of these, it's not like running up on a deer that's standing out in the middle of the trail when you're riding your 4-wheeler around.
It's intimidating.
And these bastards will beat you to death.
Oh yeah, they'll stomp you. Like they stomp snowmobilers all the time. They stomp sled dogs, wolves. They think sled dogs are wolves, So, and the sled dogs don't have a chance because they're all tied up. But I mean every moose is different too. Like we don't have the really big majestic moose like they have up in Yukon or Alaska. I mean, they're still big animals. So I have no idea. I mean, if you come up on them and you're like, holy shit, what is it?
Yeah, they're huge.
What is that? This giant brown animal standing in the middle of the trail, like standing its ground. But, and the bulls don't have antlers until, October, November, and they shed them in March. But a cow with a calf or two calves is much more frightening than a big bull. But a big bull in rut is pretty intimidating.
I can imagine. I couldn't imagine having something that big. It'd be great because, like I said, we like to hunt and stuff. But how much do they weigh? Couple thousand pounds, 1,500 pounds.
No, they're not as much as cattle.
I didn't know
the ones around here probably between 400 to 800 pounds. I would say.
Wow, that's still big. That's huge. That's
I mean, you see them in person. They're 4 times bigger than a white-tailed deer. On average.
And they're just really tall. Or got a lot of long. Their legs are long as hell anyway.
Yeah, because they live in the swamps and the beaver ponds, and that's what they eat off the bottom of lakes and rivers, and they're hiding from the bugs in the summertime, and so they'll come and graze the top of the popples, the young popples, in the fall and the winter. That's what they eat, and they got to get through the snow, and they're big, very long-legged, tall, intimidating animals that you don't want to mess with.
What about bears? Do y'all have to deal with any kind of bears or other predators when you're out on the trail?
We have black bears. We don't see a lot, but like bears are afraid of dogs. So, we hunt bears with dogs. I mean, we don't, but bear hunters hunt with dogs in Wisconsin. Our neighbors can't do that in Minnesota, but yeah, we don't have any problems with black bears. You know, we go camping up in the Boundary Waters, and I bring canoe camping, and I'll bring 2 dogs with me, and I got the Belgian Malinois. She keeps the bears out of camp. You know.
I got you. Is that the pet, the house dog, and the protection dog? The Belgian?
Yeah, she's the herd. Yeah, she's the herd protector. She takes inventory on, you know, she's a herding dog, takes inventory and everything. And got to micromanage everything. Got energy bouncing off the walls. She's like 5 sled dogs in one with her energy, and kind of crazy.
We know a couple of guys that actually they use Belgians to hog hunt with.
Oh yeah,
and you know it's something different. There's a lot of people that are so traditional or wrapped up in that they don't think, you know, they're not open-minded enough to say, yeah, man, let's try something new. And they stick with what they know. And so they don't really accept it a whole lot. But I've seen a couple that were really good dogs. I've never hunted any, you know, but I know they're pretty good dogs. In the hands of the right people, they're phenomenal.
Yeah, she's super smart. Like, she knows a ton of words, and she took her grouse hunting when she was young, and she loves grouse hunting. And she loves when we play fetch. I'll throw the ball, and she'll play fetch all day until she collapses. And then you throw the ball into the woods, and she'll go find it. Like, she'll hunt for it until she finds it. Mm-hmm. She won't come back until she finds it. And then it's funny, when she sees the deer, she gets so overexcited. She takes off after the deer, and she screams. You can hear her screaming through the woods as she's chasing the deer.
Yes, sir. She's opening up. She's letting him know, coming to get you. Is that the only other breed that you have besides the sled dogs? Is just the Belgian?
Yeah, that's all I got. I just got her last June from a breeder down in Tennessee, and her parents are they come from working lines. Her father was a French ring level 3 champion in the U.S. and in France, and so they've been breeding dogs for like 40 years.
Oh, okay.
But I've been wanting to get one for the last 5 years, and I've just never been able to do it. And I finally, you know, put a deposit on her, and had to wait about 1.5 years to get a dog on their waiting list. But
that's good that you got her from somebody that's reputable.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the dog world long enough. I mean, you know, if you're going to put money into it, you know, every dog should be purebred. It was amazing to watch her run on the first try.
That's pretty good. So we might see some sprint racing dogs with some little bit different look here in a few years, huh?
No, we're not going to breed her to the sprint dog.
See, that's what first thing a hog hunter would do is like, hey, we're going to take her hunting. If she hunts good, we're going to breed her to something. Yeah, that's because in our stuff, it's like honestly, there's a lot of guys that run purebred dogs, but I don't know, man. I think the majority of the best dogs that I've ever seen, all of them have been mixed breeds of some kind, and it's wild how that works.
So we breed for performance, because if you want better performance, you need to breed your best performing dog. And then you're trying to make that performing dog a little bit better. So, you know, you got to just kind of write down the positives and the negatives with the dog, because there's, you know, like we got 50 some dogs here. I can only think of like 4 or 5 of them that are really like perfect dogs that I would never sell, you know. I do like a stud service or a lease, you know, type deal, but you know, we never sell our best dogs, and you're never going to buy, you know, the best dog from anybody unless you get a puppy or a stud service or, you know, something like that, or somebody selling out, they're getting out of dogs.
Yeah. That's about the only way, huh? What kind of prices do those type dogs have? I've always been curious of that too. Like if you were going to get a pup, and if you don't mind, just like kind of do a rundown for us, because I'm sure it's the same way in that as it is with what we do. You have guys out here that breed them. They breed whatever just to sell them, and they're cheap, and you're going to get what you pay for. And then you have people like yourself who breed performance dogs, who have been doing it. You're a reputable breeder. You're a kennel. What's the prices on a pup, a young dog that's started, or a dog that's really doing it, a finished dog?
Yeah, so you touched it on, like a reputable breeder. So we do health tests and DNA tests on our breeding dogs, just to ensure that it's going to be a good pairing. Mostly I look at the coefficient of inbreeding. We want that under, you want it under 10%. And most of our dogs float in between, 2 and 6%.
Yeah.
But, the reputable breeder thing is like, we got a lot of years invested in this, and we've imported dogs from Alaska. We've imported dogs from Canada. We have European bloodlines. So it's not just, you're breeding in this corner of Minnesota. Like, we have dogs, bloodlines from around the world. And it's a lot of time and a lot of investment that you have into the sport. So the guarantee that the dog is going to turn out is pretty darn good. So, it depends if you want a trained dog or if you want a puppy. Our puppies, we start selling them at $2,500, but I don't like selling puppies because I'm so attached to them. But I'll put it out there. If somebody wants one, I'll maybe take like 1 or 2 out of each litter.
Yeah.
And, try to sell them. But I want them to come to me looking for that first. So, we, just like any purebred breeder, we have an application process. I'm going to do an interview. I'm not going to give it to some, meth head in town that, thinks it's a cool dog,
That's right.
So, they start there, and then, I bought dogs, from mushers, adult dogs that were, in the $400 or $500 range. They were good dogs. The best dogs I've ever had? No. But they were good. I've heard dogs, North American champions, Rondy champions, lead dogs going for $10,000-$15,000 a piece.
Yeah.
And, good hunting dogs or horses, or, it's all kind of the same thing. But, from what I found is that it's more economical for us to just buy a stud service for $500 to $1,000 to that top dog,
There you go.
and then, raise your own litter out of that dog. So, and then sometimes they'll get rid of that dog, that $10,000 dog when they're done racing, or they keep them around. But, it's the dog world. It's tough. I mean, you got to jump on it right away, because if you don't take that offer right away and have that cash in your pocket, that dog's gone the next day.
That's exactly right. And like you said, just because it says $10,000 on that price tag, that don't mean shit. Somebody wants it. And I've been in that situation. Actually, we just went today and picked up some dogs from a guy that I started hunting with.
He knows we don't need no more.
Yeah.
But
When I very first started hunting, and he was like, this is what I need. He said, I'm getting out of it, and it was like, I told him, I was like, man, I got too many dogs, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, if you don't want them, he said, I don't want, he said, I really don't even want to put them out there for sale. I'd rather them go to somebody that I know. And so I was like, man, I thought about it for just a minute. I was like, yeah, I'll take them, because I knew if I don't, and then I think about it tomorrow and I call him back, he's going to be like, hey man, somebody else wanted them.
Yeah.
Because these are not puppies or nothing. These are all finished dogs that you can do what we do with them. I mean, like you can go turn them loose. They're going to find hogs. If hogs are there, they're going to find them. And they're hard to come by, especially, if you get them, somebody gives them to you, or
especially getting 6 of them,
or if you get them for a little bit of nothing. I mean, they're going to be a couple $1,000s a piece,
Yeah.
So,
and another thing I found too with bringing sled dogs into your kennel is that dogs coming in from other kennels don't necessarily mesh well with your program. And some dogs take like a week or two to settle in, and some dogs take a year or two to settle in. But they're still never as good as raising your entire litter here on the property, because we get those puppies out. We don't let them go in the big dog kennel until they're big enough, because those chains are whipping around. Everybody's excited. They want to play with puppies. But the kennel knows when those puppies are born. They can hear them crying.
Oh, yeah.
So they're part of the pack. And, people ask all the time, customers ask all the time, it's like, well, do you ever have any dogs that fight? Well, it's like, well, yeah, we do, but usually it's not until the girls come into heat and then the boys are fighting, So everybody gets along. Like I can let all the dogs loose and we're not going to have a dog fight.
Well, that's good. That's really good.
And you don't even see that at doggy daycare, like they're in timeout, or they got to be in locked in the building for the whole day because they don't play well with others,
Mm-hmm. And I find that kind of, I'm not going to say odd, but it is to me a little bit, because when you have dogs that are that high performance and they're high strung dogs and they got a lot of energy, usually they're, I'm not going to say, really real aggressive, but you tend to have dog disputes, should I say, here and there.
Yeah. So I know exactly what you're saying.
Right. For sure.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Like the more exercise and the free time, the more they're running, the more they're trained, the better they are. It's always that first hookup in the fall when we're first harness training. That's the toughest run. So everybody's trying to figure it out, and they got too much pent up energy. So what I do is I take a look at the long range forecast, and I try not to start until we have a consistent cold weather window where we can get everybody moving. Because if you do one training run and then it's too warm for like a whole week, those dogs have so much pent up energy and they want to go that it's just chaos times 10 over again. So once we get into, late December, when these guys are giving tours and they're pulling the sleds and everything, they're running like a machine. And then so I don't really have to do a lot of training. So on the ATV, when we start on the ATV, I'm just kind of reassessing in the fall, where the dogs are from the previous year, because the dogs are kind of at that 6 and 7 year old age, are either going to make it with the young dogs, or they're going to be on the old dog team. And then that's when we work on the training where, we didn't talk about the commands, but, the left, right, straight ahead, passing, stopping, all that stuff. That's when we work on that training, because you have full control with the ATV. I can run, 12 to 14 dogs with the ATV before it gets too much power, and be able to stop and get off that ATV and make a correction right away, where you can't do that with the sled. So they need to have a good, 4 dozen, 5 dozen runs in them before we get on the sled itself.
I got you. So you keep them busy, and that way that energy is utilized. And so it's not a bunch of pent up energy. Like you said, that there are certain times where it will be, of course, but for the most part, you keep them to where their yin and yang's good. They got a good aura. The chi is all right.
Yeah. So with the sprint racing, like it's not good to run them every day because you're going to tire them out. You're not going to get speed out of them. So just kind of a general rule of thumb for sprint racing, they train every other day. And then once we start racing, primarily our races are on Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But if they're just Saturday, Sunday, you're traveling home on Monday and Tuesday, and then you'll do like a tune-up run on Wednesday, and then you're traveling again on Thursday and Friday. So in the racing season, they're really only running like 3 days a week.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you're traveling a lot with them. I got you. They, what all do you were talking earlier about the lactic acid buildup and that's from running them too much?
That's from, well, you think of a sprinter. So, like Olympic sprinter that's running 100 meter or 200 meter. They're anaerobic. So they're not using oxygen as their primary energy, which is fat burning, like a marathon runner. They're using sugars. So once they run out of sugars, that quick sugar, that glycogen in the muscle, if they keep going, they're going to produce a lot of lactic acid, which is anaerobic, and that will seize up their muscles. That will make them cramp or get tight until they switch back over to that aerobic system. And it's every excuse me, I was a bike racer back in the day, and I studied exercise science in college. And as you get fitter and fitter, your lactate threshold gets higher. So if you get really fit, you don't start using sugars until your heart rate is very close to your max heart rate. So when you're out of shape, you go for a little jog down the driveway. It's like, oh, I'm dying. Like I can't do it. My heart rate's too, it's only at 150, but my max heart rate is, 190. It's because you're out of shape. Like you're not using oxygen. You're not.
So you're using the sugars then.
Yeah. So, with the sled dog season, like we really don't start racing until early January. And then the races are shorter, and they kind of get longer as the season goes on, so that the dogs have time to get in shape and train up to that level. It's much different than human training. You can't just take these dogs and go, if you're a marathon runner, you can't just take these dogs on their first day in the fall and go do a 20-mile run. They're not going to handle it. Where a human runner could do that if you have experience. So, when we start in the fall, we're only starting at 3 or 4 miles. And then they don't ramp up the mileage until it starts getting cooler. They might take 2 or 3 weeks at that distance until they get faster and better shape. And then we'll bump it up to 5 or 6 miles. So, at the end of the season in February and March, that's when the 25 or 20-mile races are.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know with you going to college and knowing all this stuff, that's got to come in handy for the conditioning and the training of the dogs, man. That's got to come in handy.
Yeah, it's funny because I was an elite cyclist. I raced around the U.S. and I raced around Canada and Central America, and I went to college for exercise science, and I ended up being a swim coach for a while and coaching at the university and coaching high school level team and USA swimming. Wow. And I never really used the degree. Like I never used it. And now here I am with sled dog.
Yeah.
And I can condition a dog very well, but it's taken me a long time to be a good dog trainer, and I'm still learning every day about dog training,
That's
and
cool.
The dogs teach so much every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard part. It's the dog training. I can condition any athlete, anytime, any kind of athlete, but for, the training aspect,
it's a little different.
Much harder. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know what, how much of a difference it would honestly be, because of course there's a lot of people out that hunt that are not in very good shape. There's a lot of them that are in extremely good shape. There's a lot of guys that, they played ball or they worked out or they were competitive in some sport or some area. But at the same time, dogs are so much different. And I always figured, I was like, well, man, it shouldn't be that much different, but it is. Every single dog is different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they are.
And it's just like if you have 5 litters of puppies off the same dogs over the course of 10 years, every one of those dogs out of every litter is going to turn out different.
Yep. And every dog in the same litter is different.
Yes, exactly. Every dog in that litter will be different, but every dog from the start to the finish of it is going to be different. And I just find that so crazy. And I guess that's why I still do this junk. I guess I'll always mess with these dogs.
It's funny because I can't run my business without help. I can't run without handlers. Usually turn over handlers about every 2 years because they're young kids. They're in college, and it's a good job for them. They like to work outside and whatnot, but they're so full of energy, and I let them do all the hard work and all the heavy lifting and stuff, but they're so inefficient. I mean, they'll outwork me any day, but they cannot be more efficient than I am.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing it for so many years. Like I can get stuff done like super quick, and I know what that dog's gonna do before the dog does it, and they're like, like fish out of a barrel.
Yeah.
Fish out of water.
Well, and I think a lot of it, even young people that don't, especially like you said, in that case where some of them might not have ever really been around dogs and it's new to them. Like my son, Nate, he wasn't raised in it his whole life, but ever since he's been big enough to really get around good, probably 8 years old, we've run hog dogs, and he's got to where he's very efficient with things, and he knows an extreme amount, but every now and then he'll be doing something and I'm like, dude, this way. He was like, just let me do it. Then it'll come back and he'll be like, and I'll just laugh at him. I just look at him and laugh. He's like, shut up, leave me alone. and it's because the reason he's become efficient and done these things is because he's made these mistakes on his own. And he corrected them on his own. He and like I said, I'm not saying it just because he's my son, but he wants to, if he's doing something, he doesn't want me to tell him the easy way. I'm like, hey, I can save you some time right here. He's like, just let me do it. I'm like, okie dokie, do it.
Let me do it the hardest way possible the first time.
Yep.
I want to see how fucking bad it can get, and then I want to see your way, and then I want to see if I can add anything to your way. But I just got to have the first experience. You got to have the shitty experience so you appreciate the good.
Yes, I agree. Then
but then you don't change anything about your way.
yeah. Don't change this shit about my way. I used to get so pissed off at my dad, man, and it over nothing because like one time I was trying to get a transmission line started and an automatic transmission, and I kept messing with that thing, messing with it. I mean, I stayed there for like 2 hours. I could not. It just wouldn't work. Of course, I was a kid. I think I was 14, 15 years old. He goes out there, crawls under there, literally grabs it, sticks it in there, starts it, tightens it up. He's like, what was so hard about that? And it just ate me alive. I had the same scenario about 2 years ago with my son, Luke. And I walked over there and grabbed it, just stuck it in there, tightened it up. And I was like, damn, I remember those days. I said, I remember those days. He was like, how did you do that? I was like, it comes with age, son. It just comes with age.
Well, yeah. I mean, we all thought our parents were stupid. It's just that they don't care that they got more important things to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
We all thought we were the smartest people on the planet.
Oh yeah.
And I I hate talking to my dad because when you got problems, he's always right every time. He's got so much more life experience, you know?
Yeah, and that's what it is. A lot of it is it's the wisdom comes from life experience.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. And which, I mean, I haven't had my dad in many, many years. And I see guys that are my age and their dads are getting in their 70s or 80s and they're really cherishing these moments now. And I get kind of jealous, you know, because I'm like, damn, I didn't get to live that part yet, you know. Of course, you know, but when I was younger and he was still here, like you said, it was I couldn't understand it. I was like, he's why is he doing this? Why doesn't he do this? He's dumbass. He don't know this. He don't know nothing. And I knew everything. And now here I am. I'm like, imagine all the things that he could have taught me later on, you know. But like I said, he left the world pretty early. So if you've still got your dad, you know, be thankful for that. You got somebody that can still give you that wisdom and give you a hard time about it too.
Yeah. My dad's not that much older than me. He was a young dad, but I lost my mom about 5 years ago. It was kind of a hard thing to deal with, but still got him around, and then have some parent or older mentors, mushing mentors that I'm very, very close with their entire family, and I call them all the time and run stuff by them all the time. You know,
you got a net, like you said, you got that network there.
Yeah, you got to have those immediate resources where you can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I gotta put staples in this dog. Can you come hold them for me?" You know, like, because they're calling you the next week to do the same thing. Come do it,
yeah. Hey, speaking of staples and stuff like that, what do you guys take with you for like your first aid kit? What are you got in your first aid kit?
Well, you know, just like you guys, I mean, there's no vets out there in the woods, so you know, it's good to have a staple gun on you. We got Coban, like a Leatherman, and that's about it. I don't carry too much because we're not doing the 120, 150 mile run. So
I got you. I just didn't know, you know, how serious. I mean, I know the injuries can happen at any time. You never know, but I just didn't know how often or how severe the injuries would be, and what was the most common.
You know, the worst thing I had, like, I remember I had to cut a line because we got in a bad tangle and a dog was getting choked out and she was just about ready to pass out. So I had to cut a line, you know, and let her recover. But I'm very cautious in the way that I run my dogs, and I'd rather err on the safe side and finish the training run than, you know, go for speed. And I think that comes with maturity, you know, like how I take it easy on young dogs and really don't push them until they're over 2. You know, I see some of my handlers just not doing that with some of the dogs. So kind of, you know, have to talk to them a little bit about that. But, yeah, I was trying to be safe and coming from a coach's perspective, like, but shit does happen, you know, like, we run into porcupines and like, fucking damn thing. Like,
I'm glad we don't have them. The woods
are so thick around here that you can't see them, but the dogs can smell them because they reek, they piss and shit all over themselves.
Oh yeah,
there's some foul smelling animals. Oh.
That's the only thing I wanted to go. We did that in Michigan, wasn't it, Nate? Yeah, Michigan. I was like, stop everything. I want to catch a porcupine. No, you do not. That's the dumbest shit I've ever done.
And they're tough. You could shoot one of them down. If you don't hit him right in the head.
You shot. Who shot? I don't know.
I think we took turns shooting.
Everybody was up there shooting at it anyway, so they stink.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I shoot them every time I see them, or I run them over with my truck, you know. And but yeah, the dogs get into them, and then it ruins your day. I mean, you're pulling porcupine quills for the next 4 hours. So, you know, luckily we've only had to bring one dog into the vet because he was trying to fight me, and we had to sedate him. But you know, you got to pull all those quills when you get home. You finish the run, get all the dogs home, and then work on the worst dogs first, and get all of them out of their mouth so they can relax. And yeah, that's kind of the worst problem we have. But I mean, if that's the worst problem, you know, that's not that bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not that. Yeah, it could be a lot worse, you know. But we deal with a lot of snake bites. We have. I think that's a big deal about everywhere in the Southeast. That's one of the more common problems. Big thorns, getting in a dog's eye or in their nose, their pads, stuff like that. So we keep a pretty good size medical kit with us at all times. We keep a big kit on the truck, and then we have a smaller one we have in a backpack, or we keep like blood stop or some super clot, staple gun, whatever. You just keep it in your pocket, you know, because you never know what's going to happen when you're doing the stuff we're doing. So I just didn't know how much of a difference it was.
And not even just for the dogs, for you.
Yeah, for us too.
I've seen people get injured just as many times as the dog, whether it be from the hog or just misstep, roll their ankle, fall, cut their arm on a rock or on a stick, anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because those dogs are banging through the woods pretty hard on hot pursuit. Like, you know, our dogs are athletes, so they're on good trails. Like, there's not a whole lot that can really go wrong that they don't hurt themselves, or, you know, that you didn't do to cause the problem, you know?
Yeah. I'm sure everybody heard all that. One of the hog dogs is in here running around and got under the table and took the microphone with him. It's M&M. It's Nate's pup. He's I don't know. He's almost 2 years old now, ain't he?
Yeah,
getting close to 2 years, and he thinks he's my grandson. So he stays in here with us all the time. What are you doing? I can hear. Could you hear it good? Okay. Anyway, so he's just chilling, and he got up and he caught the mic cord, took off. So that's what all that noise was. But it's amazing that what some of these dogs will do, because like literally he's laying right here under my feet. He knows he made a mistake. He didn't even get scolded or nothing. He just laid down. He knew. And what was it, yesterday or day before yesterday? I mean, he baited a 200-pound boar hog in a cave, and with 2-inch teeth in there swinging around. You would never think it's the same dog. It's just pretty cool.
I've seen some of them videos. That's pretty intense what you guys do with them hogs.
Yeah. I'll send you some of the good videos, some of the uncut ones. We can send you some of the private videos, because it goes a little different sometimes, you know. Yeah. We can only put certain stuff on YouTube and social media, which we try not to put nothing real graphic, you know. But it does happen. Things happen. And and like you said, that kind of gives it a bad look if you put the wrong thing up there. Plus, they'll cut your channel off and all that shit now. So.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you got a YouTube channel. So your YouTube channel, it's Endurance Kennels, same thing.
Yep, Endurance Kennels, and then I think we got the most amount of traffic on TikTok. For whatever reason, we got pretty popular on TikTok.
Nate around the yard with them.
Oh yeah.
I think that'd be really fun.
Oh,
yeah. I think it'd be awesome. So you got anything else? Any other topics or anything else you want to try to throw out there?
You know, I had something on the tip of my tongue, but I totally forgot.
I probably interrupted
what it was.
Yeah. I probably interrupted you and changed the whole course of everything.
We go off on tangents all day. I'm sure I'll think of it tomorrow morning when I'm having coffee.
Hey, look, this phone works. All you got to do is holler again and say, hey, let's do something else. Let's talk about some more shit.
No, we're good. We're good. No, it was a good interview. I appreciate you guys calling me.
Now
it's fun to hear, a different perspective and working with canine athletes, and we're, all have the same common denominator.
Yeah. And honestly, there's so much of it that's the same.
Well, it's working dog.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like a lot of people, like, they hear working dog and they don't think hunting dog is in the working dog, or like these sled dog. Like, they feel like there's a divide in the working dog. And I'm like, no, we're all on the same team.
Yeah. And we do things so similar. Like, we look for the same things as far as breedings. And a lot of us, we do the same thing as you do, as far as, like, if we breed and we have a litter of pups, like, we want to keep those and see how they turn out. We might put one or two with somebody, just the whole layout of it. I think everybody is more one and the same than not.
Yeah. We can all learn from each other too,
Yes.
Like, it's a big community that, there's such a great divide between the pet people and the show people and the working dog people. And everybody wants to butt heads, but then we're just off doing our own thing, and then they come in and try to freaking, change everything that we're doing, and then leave. They're disposable. There's disposable dog people. Their dogs are an inconvenience to their lives sometimes, and it's not. We're a working dog man that's like, or woman, like, it's your lifestyle. I'm completely committed. Like,
yes,
no vacation.
That's right.
drop what you're doing to take care of the dog. Like, it's the whole lifestyle. It's not optional. It's a lifestyle.
That's the biggest thing that I've learned from this, is that there's a lot of people out there that have dogs and it's part of their life. But then there's people like us where dogs are our life. Like, that's all we do. Everything revolves around that.
Right. Yep.
And so, I think on that note, that's about as good as it gets right there, my man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you bring your happy ass down south where it's not very nice, where it's not cool and all that. It's going to be hot, sticky, nasty. And we'll go to the swamp, or we'll climb a mountain, and we'll get in a cave, and you can grab a 300-pound boar hog and you can stick him with a big pig sticker. It's a hands-on experience. Hey, bring the sled dogs. We'll hook them up.
April and May would be a really good time for me to come down, because I don't have much going on,
If you could, all joking aside, if you could put any time together, it doesn't matter when it is.
We make the time,
because we got personal properties we can hunt year round. We'll go hunt for sure, and you're welcome. You stay right there with us. It won't cost you a dime. Come on and go.
I'd love to go shoot hogs at night with the infrared.
Well, we've got some of that stuff laying around. I mean, there's some, it is. And there's a lot of guys that do it. We do a full management package, on some properties, but we predominantly do with the dogs. Now you can incorporate the thermal with the dogs as well. You can spot them with the thermal. Oh yeah. And then turn the dogs loose. If you got like open fields, that's pretty slick too. But yeah, you get it set up where you come down. We'll hook it up. We'll go.
Nice.
And so now I don't know if I can handle coming up when it's too cold. I'm pretty fat, so I mean, it might be nice to not sweat, because I just sit outside and sweat, sit inside and sweat. So, but Tony, man, we appreciate you so much. Thanks to for being on here and taking your time out of your life to sit and talk with some old redneck boys from down here, and giving us a new perspective on stuff.
Thanks for including me. How the heck did you guys find me? I don't even know.
I found you on TikTok about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've been following
you a while. And then
Okay.
I saw someone share a post that you had made on Facebook probably 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I just I don't know, just we have the podcast. And so I was like, I just want to get on as many people with working dogs on here as possible. And I was like, I bet that isn't a conversation that's been had, hog hunters and sled doggers. So let's line that up.
And I mean, we do, like I said, we don't do just the hog dogs. Like we do all kinds of dogs, blood tracking dogs, coon dogs, squirrel dogs, rabbit dog, whatever.
We like dogs.
Any kind. But now we predominantly do more about hog dogs because that's what, that's our circle. That's our group. That's our niche.
Yeah.
And, but having some variety, that's the spice of life. So there you go. We got life going on. We're living life.
One more thing to put on the bucket list.
Right on, brother.
For sure.
All right, my man. Well, we appreciate you, Tony. You and Endurance Kennels. Y'all keep pushing them along. Let them slide you on down the road. Don't hit no mooses.
Yeah. Thanks for talking, guys.
All right, buddy.
Thank you, Tony.
See ya. All right, let me hang this up. Well, that was awesome. That dude right there you can tell he's very intelligent. I probably screwed it up more than anything if I'd have just let him talk.
Well, other than Eminem pulling the mic off, he has walked through those cords 40 times.
Yeah.
And then he snatched it off and that microphone landed right on the end of it. And for a second, it quit making sound, like recording sound.
I was like,
if you broke the microphone, I'm not even mad at the dog, but I'm just going to be so sad.
That's G Pappy little baby puppy.
With G Pappy's baby.
That's my baby puppy. That's my first grandbaby. That little motherfucker right there drives me crazy.
Yes.
But hey, listeners, we appreciate y'all.
Yes,
y'all have and I know I say this every show, and I go on and on and on about it, and that's what I'm gonna do. Every time, really. There's a million other things I could be doing, but I can't think of one of them that I would want to do other than this.
No. Pretty fun.
Not at all. I love it. So till the next time, until we stir up some more bullshit or find another bunch of shit to talk about, we will holler at y'all. We'll see ya.
Thank you. Hope y'all enjoyed that episode. Stay tuned for our new episodes every Monday and Wednesday. For questions, advertising, or just to chat, email DixieDoggers01@gmail.com.